All right, let's dive right into Tesla's 2024 Impact Report. Now, this isn't just some boring corporate document. It's really their blueprint for a very specific version of the future, and it's packed with some pretty bold claims and fascinating data. We're going to break down all the most important numbers and ideas right here, slide by slide. So let's get into it. So everything you're about to see, every number, every claim in this report, it all comes back to this one single sentence. This is the lens through which the company presents everything it does. But, a mission this huge doesn't just come out of nowhere. According to the report, it's a direct answer to two massive global problems. The first problem the report goes after is air quality, and the number they lead with is, well, it's staggering, 8 million. That's the annual number of premature deaths they cite from fossil fuel pollution. And to put that into perspective, the report actually frames it as 1 in every 5 premature deaths on the entire planet. It's a really stark figure, and it's positioned as the core reason for their entire push into electric vehicles. And then there's the second huge challenge, road safety. The report points out that nearly 1.2 million people die in traffic accidents every single year, which makes it the leading cause of death for kids and young adults. Now, this is a really important setup, right? It frames the problem not as something to just chip away at, but as something to be solved. And that becomes the perfect narrative entry point for the company's intense focus on autonomy. Okay, so you've got these two massive problems, pollution and safety. The report then lays out its solution, and, it's not framed as just selling cars. It's about building a complete, interconnected ecosystem. And this slide, it really maps out that whole system. See, the idea they're presenting is that it's not just about the car. It's about how that car is powered by solar, how the grid is stabilized by batteries, how the car gets charged on a specific network, and eventually how it's driven by AI. The report argues that every single piece of this loop is designed to make the others stronger. Okay, so that's the big idea. But what about the proof? Let's get into the actual numbers. This next section is all about how the report tries to measure the real-world impact of that ecosystem. All right, the big headline number the report kicks off with is 32 million. That's the total metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions it claims its products have helped customers avoid, all added up. This is basically their top-line metric for showing how they're doing on the environmental front. But what does that really mean for, say, a single owner? Well, the report breaks it down. It says that just one Tesla in the US avoids about 52 metric tons of CO2 equivalent over its entire life compared to a gas car. And here's what's really interesting. They make the point that as the electric grid itself gets cleaner, the car's carbon footprint actually goes down over time, something a gasoline car just can't do. One of the biggest hurdles for anyone thinking about an EV is charging. Is it reliable? Well, the report addresses this head-on with a very specific number. 99.95% uptime for its global supercharger network. This is the number they're positioning as the answer to range anxiety and is the key to making a long road trip in an EV feel totally normal. Now let's talk safety. The report gets right into the topic of battery fires. It puts its own data out there, showing 6.5 vehicle fires for every billion miles driven. It then compares this to what it just calls a significantly higher U.S. average for all vehicles. It's a pretty direct data point aimed at countering what has been a persistent safety concern. And that safety argument continues with Autopilot. And honestly, this chart is the core of their case. Just look at these bars. According to their data, a car with Autopilot turned on averages 6.77 million miles between accidents. Compare that to just over 1 million miles without it, and the U.S. national average of around 700,000 miles. So based on this data, the report makes a really bold claim that the technology is almost 10 times safer than the average human driver. Now, the report isn't just about cars. A huge chunk is dedicated to energy storage, and specifically the Megapack. It's basically a massive industrial-sized battery. Its whole job is to stabilize power grids. This is presented as an absolutely critical piece of the puzzle for making renewables like solar and wind, which can be unreliable, a dependable part of our energy mix. And they don't just talk about this in theory, the report gives some really cool real-world examples. In Puerto Rico, a network of home batteries created a virtual power plant that kept homes running during grid failures. In Australia, 16 different Megapack sites jumped in to stop blackouts. And maybe the most impressive example, in Hawaii, Megapacks on the island of Oahu were a key reason they were able to shut down their very last coal-fired power plant. Okay, so we've looked at the impact of the final products, right?
But the report then kind of zooms out, arguing that its mission goes deeper into the very foundation of how these things are made, from the supply chain all the way to the factory floor.
Now, this is a really fascinating and honestly a pretty counterintuitive claim they make. The report flat out asserts that a fully sustainable economy, one that's based on renewables and recycling, will ultimately require less total mining than our current fossil fuel economy, which is constantly just extracting and burning through resources. It's a fundamental rethinking of how we use materials.
And to back up that philosophy, the report gives us this number: 100%. This is their claimed waste disposal diversion rate. What that means is they're asserting their factories now send zero, absolutely zero waste to landfills. For any kind of heavy industry, that is a huge operational claim.
The report also brings the focus back to its workforce. It presents data showing two trends moving in opposite directions. Reported work-related injury rates are apparently going down, while at the same time, the number of safety suggestions coming directly from employees is going up. They present this as a positive feedback loop for making the workplace safer. All right, let's get to the final section of the report, and this is really all about the future. The narrative here builds towards a world defined by autonomy, and not just for cars, but for labor itself. The whole argument for a robotaxi network, at least as it's presented here, really boils down to one thing: cost. This table lays out their case pretty clearly. The goal is to create a service where the cost per mile is cheaper than any other option, cheaper than a regular gas car, and even cheaper than owning your own Tesla, which they peg right here at 74 cents per mile. And that vision of autonomy goes way beyond just cars. It goes to Optimus. The report defines it as a humanoid robot designed to take over tasks that are repetitive, unsafe, or just plain boring. The stated goal here is to free up human time for things that are more meaningful and enjoyable, which ties right back to that core mission of improving our quality of life. So there you have it. That's the story Tesla tells in its 2024 Impact Report. It's a narrative that starts with huge global problems and ends with a vision of full autonomy. They lay out a very specific roadmap. The one question the report doesn't answer, the one it leaves for all of us, is right there on the screen. Just how fast can this particular version of the future actually get here?